I love the power of the microphone. Right? Use it wisely. Yes, use it wisely. Okay, anyway. Welcome back to our second panel this evening with our fireside chat, launching off the Tribeca Film Festival with Stage 32 and Film Interchange with special guests from SeedandSpark.com and Indiegogo.com, which you know well. I'm going to have our new guests introduce themselves one by one and tell us who they are and what they do. Erica?
I'm Erica Anderson. I'm the Director of Crowdfunding and Community at Seed and Spark, and I'm one of its founders. And we are a crowdfunding, a film-specific crowdfunding and integrated distribution platform.
Woo. Yes.
And, excuse me, I'm John Trigonis. I am the film campaign specialist, or actually strategist now. They just changed my title. It was such a quick change. Over at Indiegogo.
Oh, we have fans.
And I also wrote a book called Crowdfunding for Filmmakers a couple of years ago, which I think a lot of people have still read, which makes me happy. So thank you if any of you have read that. You're in this room. And I'm a filmmaker and a writer, and I always forget that.
Can't forget it.
Yeah, no, it's the important stuff.
Fantastic. And then also, RB, if you want to explain what your crowdsourcing, crowdfunding contribution is.
And he wears great hats.
Wears great hats, got it.
Yeah, no, crowdfunding and crowdsourcing. I'm writing a book for Focal Press on crowdsourcing right now. It should be out, well, when I freaking deliver it. So, no, it's supposed to be out in November. It's under the American Film Market imprint. This is the first year of the American Film Market imprint. And there's like 6 books that are going under there, and the crowdsourcing one is one of them. And because there is a crowdsourcing element to every crowdfunding campaign, they gave me a stool.
I feel like we're going to get into that. Okay, reaching over without spilling drinks. Okay, so I think the best place to start is what everybody knows, which is, or what they think they know, which is crowdfunding. And then we're going to kind of compare and contrast to crowdsourcing, which is the other topic. So crowdfunding, Erica, what is crowdfunding to you?
Can you raise your hands if you've run a crowdfunding campaign here? Congratulations. And how many here have contributed to a crowdfunding campaign? Good. Because if you would like to run a crowdfunding campaign, please go and support at least 10 campaigns that speak to you, whether they're for film or not. But crowdfunding, as it stands right now, is a way that you can actually fund your films directly from your audience. But there are a lot of misconceptions about crowdfunding, and that if you put it on any specific platform, that your audience will just find you. So the sort of if you build it, they will come myth, and it's not true. So the purpose of running a crowdfunding campaign, you pick a specific platform, and that's really where your fundraising happens, and you offer incentives to people. So not only do they want to see the film, but you're going to give them rewards for coming in early and often, and it's really a way for you to start marketing your film before it's actually made. I personally wish that the word was crowd ... funding. I think a lot of us are sort of searching for this thing called the funding crowd, and it doesn't exist. So really it's about, the crowd is the most important part of that word. And if you actually build a crowd, the funds will come. But if you are only focusing on the dollar amount, then you will raise it from a lot fewer people, which really doesn't help you in the long run. And this is a really long answer for what is crowdfunding.
That's okay.
If you need to raise $15,000, there are much easier ways of going about it than crowdfunding. Maybe you can get a couple of people to write you a check. And the problem with that is then only a couple of people know about your movie. So really starting to think about how many people can you touch before you actually launch this campaign to build a crowd before it launches. Because just like we were saying before, if the first interaction you have with people is that you want money, that is not a lasting relationship. You actually have to build their trust and actually engage them, involve them, and then ask them for money. So there isn't just a magical crowd out there waiting to fund your movie. You actually have to find them.
Fantastic. John?
I got nothing to say. That was perfect. No, I'm kidding. That was perfect. Actually, so it's a lot of good stuff from my heart here. But like, I mean, you know, what Eric is saying is absolutely right. It's about the crowd, and without the crowd, you're never going to get that funding. I call it crowdfinding. That's the more difficult thing to do, is like looking for your crowd.
That's good. That's another tweetable.
You like that one?
Hashtag crowdfunding. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
For the eyes, and a lot of things.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like things. I always kind of tell people, like, look, if you're going to crowdfund for the money, you're doing it wrong. You shouldn't be doing it. That's straight up, because it's not about the money. You have to want to be a part of that crowd. You want to get them involved. You want to bring them into your world, into the world of your film, or, you know, and whatever project you want, even if it's not a film, just bring them in. Be okay about that, and then give them some, you know, free stuff. And what I mean by free stuff is give them attention, time, tell them about your project that otherwise they wouldn't know about. Get them excited about it, and then, yes, we still say ask for money, and the first thing I'll tell people is, like, don't ask for money. That's not what you're doing, because the minute you say ask for money, which is exactly what it is, it's like, oh, I can't do that. No, you invite people in. You invite them into your world. And I can totally get anybody to contribute something. I'll never have to ask you for a dime. You will give me a dime, because I've given you much more. And that's the key thing, is when you don't think, now this sounds like hokey, you know, philosophical bullshit right now, but it's kind of like when you really truly believe that you're not asking for money, you aren't.
Yes.
Put that on Twitter.
Right.
Credit Jen.
Thank you.
Can I see the hands again for everybody who's run a crowdfunding campaign? How many have run a successful crowdfunding? Can I see hands? How many of the successful ones had a pre-campaign strategy in place? Okay, so more than 50% of them, I would say. I think that's the thing that, you know, we'll get to tonight a little bit, is that it's the if you build it, they will come mentality. We talked earlier in the night about, you know, the idea that the barrier for entry into making a film these days has never been lower. Well, it's the same thing for raising funds, I think you would say, right? With the advent of crowdfunding, or the introduction of crowdfunding, it's never been easier to go out there and raise funds for a project, but because it's easier, that means there's more people trying to do it than ever before. So the question becomes, how do you rise above that, and how do you stand out? And of course, part of that is having, you know, a pre-campaign, a campaign where you're identifying the crowd, engaging the crowd, and eventually moving the crowd. And that plays into all the social media stuff we talked about earlier tonight. If you weren't in here, we could talk about it afterwards, by all means. But it's the idea of, you know, building up a relationship, cultivating a relationship, and then when the time comes, getting those people to move for you, and they're going to move for you if you've engaged them and if you've built up a relationship with them and you've given them a reason. That's what makes you rise above the pack, in my opinion. And I would even say it probably gives you a competitive edge over, what would you say, 80%, 90% of the people running crowdfunding campaigns. So that's definitely something that I think we should get into a little bit.
Yeah, can I?
Yes, please do.
If you think about your film career as, you know, a small business, and each film is a small business, that, you know, businesses have to gain trust and reputation. They have to have a strategy. They have to know who their customers are, and where's the best place that they should have that shop. So you have to do that same research as well. And the more you can act like a business person and have those strategies and actually be thinking long term, the better it will go for you. And I think there's a lot of myths about crowdfunding, that it's easy money and that it's just sort of waiting out there, and it's just not the case. So it's lowering your expectations of it to actually meet your experience level, and not just think that there's a whole bunch of money out there that's waiting to come to you because you decided to do something creative. But really thinking, you know, what do I actually need, and how many people know about what I'm doing?
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And okay, so that brings us to the next topic, which is, we just talked about crowdfunding and what is crowdfunding, but how is crowdsourcing different? RB, do you want to start with this?
Sure. Well, like I said earlier, you know, crowdsourcing at its most base is identifying, engaging, and then moving the crowd. Why is that important? Well, I mean, if you have depending on what the topic of your film is, I'll actually use a case study. I'll use an actual example of this. I have a friend who is a producer. She was involved with a film called Mile and a Half. It was a documentary. You're nodding, you know it?
Yeah, good doc.
It's a good doc.
Yeah,
right?
it's about
It's
hiking.
a really good doc. It's about hiking.
Yeah.
But it's also about cinematography. It's also about photography. Basically, what the story was it's 6 cinematographers and 1 sound editor who decided to hike the John Muir Trail. If you're familiar with the John Muir Trail, it's about 206 miles. I think they only give out about 200 permits a year. They had secured the permits, and they were going to hike this thing without stopping over the course of 30 days. And what they wanted to do that was different than the other hikers was they were not only fitness enthusiasts, but they were also, like I said, cinematographers, photographers, and a sound editor. They wanted to shoot all the different various ecosystems along the way, which there are, I think, 6 or 7, pretty amazing, and capture the sound of it all. Now, this doesn't sound like a very exciting documentary, you know, but they went out for an $85,000 raise, and they did this on Kickstarter. So, $85,000. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Okay. But what they did for the first 3 to 6 months, actually it was 6 months, they went out and they engaged people in the hiking community, the health enthusiasts. They created followings on Twitter and Facebook. They went out and asked people, you know, what are your favorite trails to hike? What are your favorite meals when you're on the hiking trail? How do you take a hiking cup and create 3 meals a day that could fit in a hiking cup? Things of that nature. They engaged the crowd and they got them to interact. And then they went out to the cinematographers and photographers and people with the equipment, you know, the cutting edge equipment, and said, what would you like to see? You know, what would be engaging? What equipment are you using right now? Maybe, you know, this is what we're going to bring out there, but is there something better? Okay? By the time they launched this thing, they had thousands of fans on Facebook, thousands of fans on Twitter, and they reached their goal, I think, on day 20, but they reached about 40% in day 7. Okay? By the time they debuted the film at the First Glance Film Festival, they were the only film that ever had to be moved into a second theater because they had so many people show up, and they sold hundreds of DVDs at the screening. Eventually, it was so popular that they ended up number 2 on iTunes with very, very little marketing. Behind, of all things, the ever famous and the everlasting Hero Dreams of Sushi, which was number 1 for the longest time. They couldn't quite dethrone Hero, but they did end up at number 2. But that's a perfect example of taking 6 months to engage, identify the crowd, engage the crowd, and move the crowd by asking them questions, getting them involved. And it was also about this really, really quick was that they actually got a lot of gear equipment companies. The crowd went to the gear equipment companies and said, "You should check this out." And they started donating gear before they ever stepped 1 foot on the trail. They gave them gear. That's the power of crowdsourcing.
And doesn't that sound like way more fun than out there begging for money? Like they actually got to build this community that then they took part in. I just think that is such an amazing example for so many reasons.
Awesome, John.
I'll just add one thing, and this is something that I write in a lot of emails. Not as many as I'd like to. This is probably not the right thing to write, but patience. That's one thing that I think everybody needs to understand about when you're getting ready to think about doing the crowdfunding. Not when you're getting ready to do it, when you're getting ready to think about it. Because you need the patience. Your project's not going to go anywhere. It's going to happen. If you don't have that crowd and you need $80,000, you need to build that crowd, and you can't do it when you're asking them for money. You have to do it beforehand. So just kind of, have fun with the whole process.
Good. Okay. Yeah, be human, right? Be a friend. Be a person.
Be relatable.
Be relatable. I like it. It's good.
And their film was probably better because of that. They got cooler equipment, they got introduced to different trails, they had way more information about the meals that they were supposed to take. They made a better film because they reached out to the crowd to help them to learn more about what they were doing, especially with documentaries. You want to get as invested and entrenched in that community early on, because it will totally change the way your film comes out, not only in how it gets seen, but how it actually gets made, that it actually is a conversation.
Interesting, because you know, if you're starting a business, and if you're going to put a film together, it is a business. Like, that's what it is. And you know, in every business school across the country, across the world, one of the first things they say is test your market. Check in with your market. What do they want? Because you don't have a business, you don't have a moneymaker until you check in with your people. So it's the same thing. I mean, you know, read some entrepreneurial books, because that will also help you. So okay. Moving forward, we couldn't have a panel on crowdsourcing or crowdfunding without talking about what people do wrong. What are they doing wrong? John, do you want to take this one to start? He's laughing internally.
How much time do you have? I'm here all weekend, and so yeah, no, I mean, okay, so for me, I'll just keep it brief as possible, but the one thing that folks do wrong, and I don't like saying the word wrong, because it's not that they're doing it wrong, it's just they don't know. But after today, everybody here will know what to do right. And the one thing you should do right is set your goal properly. And what that means is, it doesn't mean like, shit, I'm just going to use $85,000 because it's a nice round number, $85,000. Okay, great. How many followers do you have on Twitter? 10? You're not getting $85,000. Sorry. Like, it's not going to happen. Spend the time, build it up. It might take you a year. I had 200 followers on Twitter when I ran my campaign. I was able to raise $5,000. You know, now I have a lot more. I could probably raise a little more. But the key thing is, keep your goal realistic. Sometimes you won't be able to raise every amount of money that you need to make the film, the complete film. But what you can do is raise money in segments by tapping into that audience and having that patience to go, all right, well, I need this for pre-production. You know, and it's not going to be $50,000 because that's ridiculous. You know, it's going to be $10,000 or $5,000 to write a script and do a little extra. Take it, bring it, write the script, come back, share a little with your crowd, and then ask for some more. Invite them on the journey of the production. And then that's the next step, and you're going to ask a little more, and it's going to build up from there. But set your goal properly.
Cool. I would say that it goes right along with this, that it's part of the preparation. So picking the amount that's actually right for you. But for me, the sort of #1 thing to do while you're actually during your crowdfunding campaign is stay away from anything that actually sounds or feels like desperation. You will like yourself better, and that's a huge part of it. And you'll continue then to actually do outreach, but getting away from this idea that you're begging for money or you're out there with a hat or everything you're talking about is how much you need money. And if you can, look at your own social media outreach, look at your own outreach in general, and the people who are tweeting things like, please help us with a donation, we're not going to do this without you, we're broke, we're hungry, it's terrible out here. Like, you don't want to pay attention to those people. And you only contribute, yeah, exactly. People they either contribute out of guilt and then block you, or they just want you to be quiet. So that is not building an audience. Whereas something that says, this is going to be an amazing experience that we would love for you to be a part of, join us with a contribution, then you get to feel good about it. And they get to feel good about it. Yeah.
Could you explain what tweeting and Twitter are and why they're of more value than like reaching out to people? Like, what? I know that guy. Guy who was married to Demi Moore, who's a movie star. He has a lot of. Yeah, he has a lot of tweeters things.
Yeah.
Regular people, is there a value? Like, does your exponentially increase if you're talking to people on tweet? Do people try to find out who you are? What's the value of all that?
So if you
Justin Bieber also has big tweets.
Yeah, so we're not just
They're already stars, right?
Yeah. Yes. So Twitter works very differently for celebrities than it does for regular people. So it's starting to think about your audience not as sort of this big, scary, general they out there that you're trying to reach. And I would do research. There are lots of different social media platforms, and they all function differently when you're trying to build an audience. So Facebook has different qualifications and different kinds of things that you post. Instagram is all visual. And
they all have their own language.
They all have their own language. So you figure out.
My question is, how do you get all these people to follow you?
follow them.
Right?
Oh, you follow them.
Yeah, well, you follow them and you reach out to them first, and you recognize their work first, and you don't ask for anything. You just check in with them first.
You're not thinking about them as all of them.
Right.
You're thinking about them as this man,
As that
this
person,
woman, this
the
man,
human
and that
being.
woman that you want to know.
Absolutely.
And how do you find their little accounts? How do you just like?
You know, we can talk about that after. We actually just had a social media platform just prior to this, so I'll connect with you right after, and we'll chat about that a little bit. Okay? But to go on about what you just mentioned, desperation. Desperation. Yes.
So the way that you get away from desperation is preparation. And so that's coming up with an actual plan. So what are you doing in week 1? What are you doing in week 2? What happens on this Friday? What happens on that Friday? Who are all of the people in your network and in your team's network? And if you are thinking about crowdfunding, you cannot do it alone. You have to have your team involved with you because you need your network and you need their network. And if your cinematographer tells you that they don't take part in fundraising, that is a lie. Because if you are crowdfunding, then you are building an audience. And every single person on your filmmaking team needs an audience because you need your film to get seen so you can make more of them. So everyone, you may run your crowdfunding campaign, but everyone needs to take part in it. So that's another big way that I think a lot of people don't do as well as they could because they try to do it all by themselves. And it just is never as successful as having a team behind you and a plan behind what you're doing.
Sure. Parveen?
Just speaking of a couple of things that Erica and John said. John mentioned the fact that, you know, with 50 followers on Twitter, you're not going to get what you want. You know, I sent out a tweet recently, somebody hit me up and said, you know, look at my, it was another one, look at my post. And I went and looked at the campaign, and, well, first I looked at their Twitter account, and they literally had 25 followers, 24, something like that. And they had hit up all 24 of them with the same message, you know, and then hit up everybody else they could with the same message. And I actually put a tweet out there and said, you know, if you have 24 followers and you're looking to raise $50,000, you have no shot. And you know, the person wrote me back and said, not if it's the right 24 followers. And I said, well, I looked at your, my response was, well, if you had the right 24 funders, you wouldn't be on Twitter spamming everybody with the same freaking message, and you wouldn't be on day 29 of your campaign with a $50,000 raise with $1,400 in it. So you have an issue there, okay? The other part of it is this idea about broadcasting and about cultivating. It happens, we talked about this in the social media panel, I know that some of you guys couldn't get into that, but I'll say it for the sake of this, is that a lot of people on Twitter and other social media accounts, they'll just go out and spam everybody with the same message. I said earlier, people look at the Stage 32 account and they see 128,000 followers, and the immediate response is, well, you know, if I send them a message and go, you know, please retweet my, you know, look at my, you know, whatever. But they're not even following me. They're not even following the account. They haven't cultivated a relationship with me. So, like John said earlier under his breath, but I'll say it above mine, you're getting blocked.
It's really minty breath.
Yeah, it's minty breath.
It's minty breath.
Minty breath. Still under it. You get blocked. I'll block you. Like, I will try to engage you, you know, once or twice, but if you're, you know, if that's the only message you have to bring me and you haven't cultivated a relationship with me, you're not even following me, you haven't even taken the time to click follow, I'm certainly not going to go out there and promote your campaign. I mean, it's just that simple. So it really is about cultivating relationships. It's all about having, you know, you asked how do you identify the crowd. Well, you got to know that. I mean, you got to know what the subject matter of your film is. You got to know who the audience of your film is, and you got to cultivate those relationships way before you launch your campaign. Way before. And it's, you know, giving them material, giving them behind the scenes, giving them whatever the heck it is that you have to give them to make them feel invested. And, you know, it's like I said in the social media campaign, you know, this is the horror. You got to ask questions. You can't make it all about you. You know, you got to ask questions. But you got to do it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
If someone tweets at you and says, you know, here's the link to my trailer, I would love to get your feedback on it. Do you feel like that's different than being spammed with like, check this out, check this out?
No. I plead the fifth. No, I don't feel like it's any different. If you've cultivated a relationship with me, it's the same thing on Stage 32. I get it all the time on Stage 32 by people saying, you know, can you look at this, can you look at that? And if they just joined 5 minutes ago and they're asking them to look at their reels and everything like that, absolutely not. Absolutely not. You have not even taken a minute to answer my welcome message, which everybody gets, okay? You haven't taken a second to help anybody else out. If I don't feel like you're giving to anybody else, why should I give to you? And that's the reality. It's like I said earlier tonight, it's social media. You know, it's if you wouldn't do it, look, if you wouldn't walk into this room tonight and walk up to any one of us and say, hey, look at my, you know, literally like that, hey, look at my shit, you know what I mean? If you wouldn't do that here, don't do it online. The reality is it's an extension of your online brand. I mean, your extension of your whole brand, the personality, who you are. You know, it's an extension of it, online or offline. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's what you want to present, what you want people to think of you. You should present it in the same way that you present it in the real world, the quote-unquote real world. You should do it online as well. I mean, it's just a reality. And speaking to your desperation thing, because this happens all the time too. You know, I have 6 hours left to hit my goal. Can you please retweet my... I literally have, I swear to God, I should be struck down if this isn't true. This happened yesterday. RB, you need to help me. And I look, first of all, not following me.
Why?
RB, you need to help me.
Why?
Didn't know who they were. They weren't following me. We got 6 hours left. And I went and looked at the campaign. I swear to God this is true. $75,000 raise, day 30 or 31, whatever it was. And they had 16,000 in.
Oh my God. Oh God.
I mean, really.
Oh my God.
Well, there is no help. I can't help you.
No, can't.
Outside of robbing a bank, I can't help you.
There's no help. That's actually a great segue. It's a great segue into my next question, and you know, RB, you might as well be the person to answer it. What does it mean to raise your funds quickly and early? What is that all about? Do you have to do it right away, or can you linger and wait till the last day to raise your goal?
I'm going to let the experts speak to this, but I'm going to try to be an expert on this. I'm going to try. Well, no, I'm not a crowdfunding. You guys are the crowdfunding experts, but I'm going to talk about this. As far as I know about this, and as far as everything that I've learned about this, is that your first line of defense and your first line of engagement is your friends and family. Okay? The whole idea is that you want to, and again, you guys can correct me on anything I'm saying that's out of whack here, but everything is about perception. Okay? So if you have friends and family, let's for argument's sake, say you're trying to raise $10,000. Okay? You're going to film a short, or maybe you're filming a film, you know, a found footage film, let's call it, for 10 grand. Okay? You go out to your friends and family, you get them engaged, you get them in the mix. Okay? They believe in you. They're all about you. They feel like they want to get behind you. What you say to them is, look, whatever you're looking to donate, okay, who's looking to donate? They raise their hands, they email in. They say, okay, you're in group A. You're going to donate on day 1, you're going to donate on day 2, you're going to donate on day 3, so on and so forth, until you get to day 7. Am I wrong?
I'm there. I'm with you.
From what I understand is that if you have 35% of your raise done in the first 7 days, you have about a 93 or 94% chance of success. If you have 20%, I think it's about an 80% chance of success. So why do you ask people to donate on different days? Why not all on day 1? Well, because you want to give this feeling or this perception that this thing is rampant, that this thing's hot, okay? What I've known, what people have done in my circles, what people have done, is they've gone to friends and family first. They've spent 6 months, okay, planning this campaign. The first week, it's only friends and family. For the second week, it's the bloggers and the people that they've engaged on social media, all the people that are interested in the subject matter of this film. They go in on week 2. So now by the end of week 2, if you're not over 50% at this point, you haven't done your job. But if you've done your job, everybody else is going to be like, shit, pretty impressive. This thing is going well. I want to be involved in this thing, especially if you've crowdsourced them and you know that this is subject matter they're going to be interested in. So it's all about having a plan. It's all about a strategy, and it is about perception. Is that trickery? Is that sneaky? I don't think so. I think it's just marketing, and I think it's just smart. It's psychology. Better, even better. It's psychology. It's giving people the idea that, man, this thing has heat, and I want to be involved in it. And then, of course, rewarding them for being involved in it, be it with content or, platform rewards or whatever it is, but mostly I would think it's even content, and obviously you guys can add to that. Hit me with the mic and...
Never happened. Absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, I'll just illustrate it in a slightly different way. We all love movies. We make movies, right? We all love watching movies. We all love The Underdog, right? Like The Underdog movie.
Yes, we do. We love The Underdog.
Right. Actually, I will say wrong. You don't like The Underdog.
No, we don't. We don't like The Underdog.
Well, we do. Okay, let me. I'm totally drunk. No, I'm not. No, we do like The Underdog, but only when they're winning, right? Because if they're not winning, they're still a loser like they were at the beginning of the movie, and we feel bad for it. And you don't root for people you feel bad for. That's sympathy. We're all about empathy when we write, right? We got to show that people they have potential to be better. So that's what you're doing with this idea of perception. Perception is stronger than truth. I hate saying that, but it's a fact.
That's a tweetable. Perception is stronger
at Trigonis on Twitter.
What's the hashtag?
I'll say hi. Yeah, what's the hashtag?
Fireside chat. Fireside chat.
Oh, shit.
He knew that. He knew that.
We have the redhead.
So yeah, I mean, I really, it's really that simple. I mean, like at Indiegogo, what I tell our campaigners straight up is like, listen, get 30% in 3 days.
Okay.
All right, 30% of whatever you want, and that's going to come from friends and family. Period. Not Facebook, not Twitter, none of that stuff. I just got like 5 people telling me, Trigonis, you were right. I should have listened to you. I banked on my Facebook friends. They're not your friends. Because you don't talk to them every day like you should be talking to them every day.
But they like me.
But they like you and they like your posts, and that's great. But when you ask them to pay for something that's attached to that like, they stop liking. Well, they'll like, because it's still free to like, but they won't click off and go. So you need to really rely on friends and family, 30%, 3 days, because you know what? Look, Jesus can raise himself in 3 days, right? We can raise 30% of our money in 3 days. It's just as troublesome. Sorry, I used to teach religion courses.
Troublesome?
Sorry, not
But now you
not troublesome.
The thing about the 30%, are you familiar with this term FOMO?
Yeah.
And it's the fear of missing out. So what you're trying to do is give this sense to people that there is an inevitability to your success. That no matter what, this is going to be amazing, and you have a plan, and it's going to happen this way, and you will deliver on it. So if you get 3 weeks into your campaign and I show up and you're 5% funded, that gives me no feelings of FOMO. That tells me that 1, you're not working very hard, or you didn't do a lot of research, and so then there is no inevitability of success there. Or 2, the people who know you and talk to you every day know that you're a crook and that you're not going to do what you say you're going to do, so then I really don't want to get involved in what you're doing. And then just to go back a little bit, there is a big difference between having thousands of Facebook likes and thousands of Twitter followers than there is having 1,000 people contribute to your crowdfunding campaign. So when you build up Twitter followers and Facebook fans, those are all fantastic things. But that just proves that you are really good at Facebook and you're really good at Twitter. And so really, social media is one tool that you're bringing all of these sort of strangers out in the ether in to actually be your nearest and dearest and to actually be your audience. And an audience is someone who opens an email because they want you to have their email address and they want to do the thing that you say that you want them to do. And so it's figuring out how do you use social media to turn those people into actual audience members. So getting them to like your Facebook page is not the end result.
Okay, except one quick thing.
Yeah, are we?
Fairly or unfairly, too, because there's a big, there's a disconnect between, or they're not attached. There's a disconnect between being a filmmaker and raising funds. But fairly or unfairly, you're going to be judged by the fact that if you can't raise these funds, or you can't put together a good campaign, you might not be able to run a set.
Yeah, it's the
You might
same
not be able
skill.
to put a film together. So that's another reason why people may not want to get behind you. What Eric said earlier, which is totally true, you're not only looking for people to fund this movie, you're looking to get them behind you for get them behind you for the next one and the next one and the next one, and as you grow your career to be the people that say, shit man, I knew this guy, I identified this guy. That was fantastic. I was fantastic.
Twitter, though.
He is the most interesting man.
Yes, he is.
But you know, you're looking to build your audience for the next one, the next one, the next one. So you want to show competency, you want to show that you have the ability to get it done, to bring things from start, you know, from concept to completion and beyond.
Great, and that's a really good segue. And just because I've said that several times tonight, but it really was because John touched on a topic about this earlier, and Irby kind of just brought it full circle of how do you reach out to the same people over and over again? You know, so if you're doing your one feature film and you're gonna do a crowdfund for your, you know, from the beginning, from your development stage. I knew that was gonna happen. So you're gonna do your first development stage crowdfund. Thank you, Erica. And then you're gonna do your post-production crowdfund, and then you're gonna do your distribution crowdfund. I don't know why, but let's just say that you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Cool. All right. You're gonna do that several times over for one project, and then you're gonna hit back to those same people again. Hopefully you've built up your following at this point, but for your next film. So how do you come back to the same people over and over again? John, do you want to try that?
Yeah, I'll take a stab. So I have a couple of things about this. Number one, if you're just starting out, I always think you have to prove yourself first. Because everybody can pick up a camera or an iPhone, same shit, and make a film. Straight up. We're no different anymore. So now we have to go on, you know, crowdfunding sites like Indiegogo, Seed, and Spark, and basically say like, all right, I need money. Well, what have you done? That's what people are going to start saying because they're not stupid. They're your audience. They know. You have to show them that you can do something with their money and something that they're going to be proud of. That's number one. So I never recommend, I seldom recommend doing multiple campaigns for the same project to the same people because you will go to the same people and they don't know whether or not they can trust you yet. They love you because they're your friends and family probably. That's about it. So they'll give it to you, but you know, you ask for post-production, it's like, all right, I've given you for the other two, find this on your own. And that's what's going to happen with like trying to get further people to, you know, outside audience members. So my thing is, do your first few films, which we've all done on our own. Crowdfund for the first film. Do a small campaign. Don't try to like get $100,000, $80,000. Get a piece of it. Test the audience. See if they're interested in what you've got to say and offer. And then when that's successful, then you can start doing that, but you still have to keep building out that audience. Because if you're going to the same audience, you're not doing crowdfunding 100% accurately.
Yeah, you actually can't go to the same people. They can be a part of, they will always, you know, be a core group of people who are going to pay attention to what you're doing, but that pool has to grow bigger and bigger and bigger each time. I've had a bunch of campaigns who have run multiple campaigns for the same project, but you have to do it in a very strategic way. So you have to set out, if you're going to raise money for development funds, and you set hopefully a pretty low budget. And you tell, you're very upfront with your audience, and you say, you know, this is only for development. I may or may not be coming back for production, but this is how far your money is going to get me. And then you go about doing exactly what you say you are going to do. So you hire the casting director, you take pictures of the casting calls, you take pictures of rehearsals. We had a wonderful filmmaker who graduated from film school and was like, nobody knows what I'm doing. I've had my head behind, you know, I've had my head in film school for years. And so he raised $5,000 for a development campaign, and it was for casting, it was marketing materials, and he wanted to throw a big party to show his previous work. And he said, you know what, in my friends and family network, I have $5,000. I know that that's something that I can do. And by throwing an event, he invited all of those friends and family to bring a few people to it. So it was something fun. He ended up showing the pitch video for the film that he was working on at the event. So then he launched a production campaign for the same film for $30,000. And he went about doing exactly what he said he was going to do. He showed them every step of the way what was going to happen. He ended up raising $33,000 in 30 days. made the film, kept us in the loop every step of the way, kept building that audience, building on the team that was working on it, building the actors using their networks, and really involving the whole community in what he was doing, and was able even to come back again for a post-production film, or post-production campaign for another 9. So for a short film, he raised over $50,000, but he did it over about a year and a half. And so he really took his time every step of the way and didn't just assume that he was going to raise that money from the same people, because he didn't have $50,000 originally in his network, but he grew that very strategically over a year and a half. And now there are people waiting for the short film and are waiting for the feature film because we all want to see what's going on. But you have to really put in the effort and the strategy behind that.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, we have a couple of case studies that we want to chat about from each platform and from RB. Why don't we start with, RB, why don't you start with talking about your 3 films? Do you know which ones they are?
No.
No?
Well, I know it's about Mile and a Half.
They're on there.
Oh yeah, all right. Well, Mile and a Half I already spoke about, so I'll make these really brief because I'm sure that these are much more interesting than mine, but they are interesting. They're gonna be in the book. One was called Rising Star. Marty Lang. Somebody named Marty. Really, really interesting case study in the standpoint that Marty, not only raised funds. It had to do with unemployment. I'm not going to get into everything because it's this. I know we only have a short period of time and everything like that. So, but it had to do with unemployment. He found people that were going to be really supportive in the neighborhood. He did this up in Connecticut, up in Hartford, and found the people that were really engaged by this material. People who had lost their jobs and people who were struggling with the downturn in the economy at the time. And he asked them to get behind this. And again, it's really, really tough to ask people who have lost their jobs and have little expendable income to support a project, but they did because they believed in what he was doing. But also as important, and this is more on the lines of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, he wanted parts of the script were to be filmed at government buildings, and he went to these government buildings and he asked them, what would it cost to film here? And the amounts were staggering. And he said, okay, what if we, this is a really important subject. We're not just filmmakers, we feel like this is a social movement. And what if we came, if you want $3,000 to shoot here, well, this is, I think it was a $15,000 raise. So, this is 20% of the budget. They said, he said, what if, we come and we shoot here, but we do a premiere here as well. We'll premiere the film here, and we'll let you keep all the proceeds. But we'll go out to our audience and guarantee you that we're going to have a really big turnout. And he did that, they agreed to it, and they ended up selling out 3 shows. So they raised more money at the premieres than it would have cost them to pay for the location. So, that's just innovation, and that's just smart, and that's just crowdsourcing at its best. But, on the crowdfunding side, he went out to people that were, that related to what he was trying to get across, that wanted, and again, a tough raise for people that were out of work. Broken Arrows is another one. This one is more on traditional this is actually traditional funding, but again, it's an example of crowdsourcing. It's a buddy of mine, his name is Mitchell Peck. Mitchell has produced a bunch of films, and some that you know and some that you may not. But Broken Arrows was a story of an Indian lacrosse player who had lived on a reservation his entire life, broke out, went to college. When I say broke out, I don't mean like that, but I mean had gotten out to, into I think at Duke or somewhere, and played lacrosse. He was the first Indian lacrosse player to play at a major college, play in a national championship on the college level. He crowdsourced, not only the lacrosse. Competitive lacrosse leagues and the colleges that were looking to promote, a lot of money in college athletics, of course, but also went to the Indian tribes and said, look, this is going to cast a very, very positive light on Indian athletes, and going all the way back to Jim Thorpe and all this stuff, and that was the kind of the platform they ran on. And they raised $15 million. just through their crowdsourcing efforts on a traditional level to get this film done. So those are just two that I wrote down. The mile and a half one is the best one I have on the crowdfunding side, as far as what's in the book. Well, outside of the Zach Braff one, but I can't talk about that right now. We'll talk about that later. I can't talk about that one later. But that's, yeah, I can. It's kind of next year I'll be talking about. But it just goes to prove the Rising Star one is the one that really intrigues me from the standpoint that, again, this was about unemployment. These were people that were out of work, and they went to the people that were out of work and didn't have money and asked them to support the film, and they did. And it just goes to show that if you identify the crowd, you engage them, and you make it about them, that they are likely to respond. So, those are the ones I have.
That's a great piece, making it about them. I think I remember these. I looked these up before I was panicking, and I was like, well, wait, which ones were they doing? So, yeah, I mean, I have 4. I'm gonna like cut them down though, but I think a couple of interesting ones for us. Iron Sky is one of the my favorite campaigns. How many of you guys have seen Iron Sky, the original movie? It's kind of a spoof, fun, terrible film. It's great. I love it. It's great. I love the guys too. They're awesome. No, it's a great film, and the reason I talk about them is because you know, I helped them strategize a little bit and things like that, and I didn't really need to because, you know, they have an audience. They have a huge audience. It's not huge, but there's plenty of people who know this first film. So these guys basically came to Indiegogo maybe 2 years ago now to raise money for pre-production and a promo video. So basically, write a script and create a promo video. And they raised, you know, I worked with them on that, and we came up with some cool perks and had a lot of fun. And they raised like $182,000 for pre-production and a promo video. It's unheard of to this day. And then they came, you know, they went away for a while and they kept their audience updated on Facebook and through the Indiegogo page. And they came back after a while and we, you know, worked with me again and we all had a good time. And they were like, yeah, we want to raise $500,000 to get the production started. And I was like, all right, great. I mean, did you, you know, and I'm getting a little worried because I'm like, your movie's a little old now. It's, you know, it's been a while. They still love you guys. And basically they did because they were able to raise the entire $500,000 through a well-wrought, strategized campaign. So this is an example of like taking the time to have an audience. So if you have a film that even if you have a tiny, tiny cult following, like minuscule even cult, it's fine. You know, 5,000 people like it, that's awesome. Love those people like your family. Because then you can lump them later on into that whole friends and family part. Because I like to say, get your friends, family, and die-hard supporters on board at the beginning to get you that 30% within the 3 days, etc. And they were able to do that, and it was amazing. And they're going to be back to raise more money and raise more, and they're going to have more fans at that point because that's what they do. So that's like an example of like kind of having a cult following. The other one I'll talk about, I mean, I have one here called The Void, which just ended recently. It's a horror film. Horror does really well because you can make it for really low budgets, and there's always a fan base. You kill someone, there's a fan base. So, that doesn't sound right. Don't tweet me on that, please. So there's always a fan base for movies about killing people. So, you know, use it. If you have that, you have a better chance or a better time to be able to engage that audience because they just love that stuff. It's a little bit easier. And then there's a, there's the Connected Universe, which was also a Indiegogo campaign. It's actually the highest funded documentary right now. You know, and I had the pleasure of working with this guy. And this was an interesting story, and it's probably the most interesting one on my little list here, because when they started, they didn't have a following. Now, the Connected Universe is just it's a movie about how everything in the universe is connected, straight up. Total stuff that I believe in. I mean, I'm totally drinking Kool-Aid here. It's great. It's a total. And the cool thing was, I remember getting on a phone call with the guy who was working on the campaign, the director, Malcolm, and I was saying, like, Malcolm, you got one hell of a following on Facebook. I mean, they're really reacting. He's like, yeah, a week ago I didn't have that. And I'm like, what do you mean a week ago you didn't have that? Would you buy these followers? He's like, no. Well, automatically assume you buy followers, which is a waste of time anyway. But he's like, no. I just started posting these quotes on these images about how everything's connected, and people started responding to it. And I was spreading the word, and yeah, he boosted a few posts, which you need to in this day and age, unfortunately, thank Facebook. And he tweeted a bunch of stuff, and you know, put in pictures. It was great. And he was able to build up like over a few thousand followers within a week. Never seen anything like this before. The power of that. And he's going at it, then going back to them after saying thank you so much, here's something free and all that. Hey, check out my campaign. And they would go to the campaign and they would jump right on it. And that's how he was able to do this. But again, when he started, he had nothing in terms of Facebook. He had family and friends and a couple of influencers in the space of universe connectivity. Hitchhiker's Guide type stuff, yeah. So yeah, that's, you know, again, that's just, at the end of the day, it becomes about like the power of the crowd. I mean, they have the power, no matter what. They have the power. We just have to invite them in the right way and give them stuff, which means we have to get to know them very in-depthly, very personally, so that we can invite them in the right way, so that we can make them a part of our world.
I have a couple of them. A lot of these are things that are specifically happening during a campaign, so ideas that you can think about to do for your campaign, but planning them ahead of time is super important. We didn't talk a whole lot about partnerships and sort of getting organization and brands on board and things like that. That is a way, you know, building your audience really is one person at a time, but you can also tap into existing audiences, and especially if you're working in documentaries, for instance, or social justice, or any sort of social change, those sorts of topics, there's usually an organization that's somehow involved. But if you're working on an environmental doc and you think that Greenpeace is going to tweet about you because you're going to tweet at them, it doesn't work that way, even if your cousin is composing tweets at Greenpeace. And we have a film that's fundraising with us right now called The Hole, and I love this project. It's a series that's looking at solitary confinement, and it's a narrative series, and how that affects all of us and affects our society, and sort of the misconceptions that we have about solitary confinement. And there are some beautiful stories and really sort of heart-wrenching stories, but the first sort of go-round of their pitch video was much more like a documentary, and it was sort of like this tortured guy in the cell. And I wrote to the filmmaker and I said, why were you interested in this project? She said, well, I'm a mom, and I found out that there are kids that go to, they've just turned 18, and they're only going to be in prison for, or in jail for a couple of years, and some of them are spending 6, 9, 12 months in solitary confinement and then getting out of prison, a couple days later after coming out of the hole. And how is that person supposed to survive in this world? And I said, why isn't that the story we're hearing about? Why isn't that something that you're working on? And she did all of her homework. She has about 32 different organizations that are on board with her. And one of them is Amnesty International, the ACLU, all of these incredible partners. And they really banked on those partnerships. They got their tweets approved a couple of weeks beforehand, and they launched, and it was a little bit like crickets. And so this was something that they had really counted on, raising this amount of money because of those partners, and realizing that everything when you're dealing with large organizations takes a while. So they're supposed to post a blog, but it has to go through legal, and so then that's going to take another week. And so really figuring out, even if you have those people on board, which you really should, early and often, and figuring out what it is that they need. And Amnesty, for instance, will not promote a crowdfunding campaign. They will talk about what you're doing, they will talk about your project, and they will send people to your website. And then it's your job to get them to your crowdfunding campaign. So figuring out your strategy around that, for instance, it's not just enough to tweet at these organizations, things like that. And then just a couple of fun things. There is the word fun in crowdfunding. So what can you do that actually makes it sort of an enjoyable experience for you?
That was good, Erica.
Yeah, thanks. I like it. Yeah. That's not the first time I've used it.
Yeah.
We had this campaign called If There's a Hell Below, and it was an NSA thriller. And this filmmaker just had so many things that he was working on that were so exciting. And he'd worked on the first Obama campaign, so he knew sort of grassroots marketing and audience building strategies. So he ran a contest called the Funder Games. And it was right at the same time that the Hunger Games came out. And he pit 3 cities against each other for the premiere of his film. So he focused all of his outreach during 1 week on, I think it was DC, Portland, and Milwaukee. And whichever city raised the most amount of money got the premiere. And then another city got, I think Boston came in and they wanted to be a part of it. But it was places where he had gone to school, had family, had a network that wanted this film and were interested in getting this premiere and to compete. So, it's totally psychological. People want to back a winning horse, and if you can get their the competitive nature involved, that's super fun. And this was something that he had planned way ahead of time in the fundraising process. So he had done a lot of marketing materials, and they each had their team mascot and all of the the visuals that went along with that. And he's one of those super independent filmmakers that had a really successful campaign that it didn't have the peak at the beginning and then these very scary doldrums and then a peak at the end. He had this very kind of slow rise and peak, which is not usually the trajectory of a campaign. And then one other one was this film called Sheila Scorned. It was a feminist grindhouse thriller, a short film, super fun. And during the campaign, before the campaign, they thought, where else are there sort of kick-ass women gathering?
Right here.
Right here. Yeah. And they are in Los Angeles, and so they thought, what about the roller derby? And so it's a place where there are a bunch of women literally kicking ass. And so they decided to get in contact with them. They said, we have an audience that probably doesn't know much about what you're doing, and we would really like to introduce them, and we would love to have your fans, your competitors know about this film because we think it would be right up their alley. And so the roller derby was thrilled. They have their B and C teams that always needs fans. They brought a step and repeat. They did temporary tattoos. They had drink specials. And it was something that they planned before the campaign. And it was something that they could promote the campaign as this really cool, fun thing that was going on. And it's more than just, hey, here's our film. Here's what we're doing. And it's that you look like a lot of fun. And it's something to think about ahead of time, to actually do things in real life. Go to things in person, plan events, those sorts of things are really, really helpful. And anytime you can do a matching contribution drive, if any of you watch PBS or listen to WNYC, those types of things have worked for forever. It's a really exciting way of getting contributions. People get to feel like their money is worth twice as much, and maybe they get a New Yorker subscription as well, and it's fantastic. So those are some just sort of fun things to do.
Well, it was all amazing information. Yes, I think it deserves a round of applause.
Sheila Scorn was so impressive in the way that they did it. They're actually in the book, and they're actually the crowdsourcing book that I'm writing as a case study. But I think the common denominator that you heard from all the examples are, it's a job, it's work. Social media is work. Raising funds is work. Identifying the crowd, engaging the crowd, and moving the crowd is work. But if you put in the work, you separate yourself, like you said earlier, from 80 to 90% of the people trying to do it.
Great, we're going a little long on time, but I do want to open up the floor to any questions that anyone may have. Yes, right here.
Can you tell me a little bit about how your organizations is different from each other and also from Kickstarter?
Okay.
Can you repeat the question because I can't hear anything?
She asked how our organizations are different from each other and from Kickstarter. So Seed and Spark is film specific, so we work with films and film related projects. And all of the platforms are a little bit different, the different fee structure, different way that they process contributions and things like that. And I think any platform will tell you that it's never the platform that's going to make or break your campaign. It's really the job that you're doing, and if you're gathering people. Even if you land on the home page of Kickstarter, for instance, that can only make sometimes a 4% difference in your campaign. So, and that's, they're very open with their numbers. We don't consider them the bad guy. I think the fact that, there are crowdfunding campaigns, or crowdfunding platforms, we are all helping so many films get made. It's just a matter of picking the platform that makes you feel the most comfortable, the most excited, and there are lots of different sort of pluses and minuses. On Stevens we're film specific. We also have our campaign pages structured like a wedding registry. So you have to list the things that you need. You can buy and loan those items, so it's not just about your dollar amount, but really the filmmaking process. And we also have a built-in distribution option as well.
I liked your answer. It was good. Yeah, I mean, I just want to jump on what you said about like, I mean, jump on in a good way. Totally.
Hey, jump on it. Sorry.
Right.
I can't help myself.
Take a turn.
What?
Don't tweet that. So no, but it's absolutely true. Is like the big misconception is that I'm going to go to X platform, whatever it is, because there's more audience there. It ain't about our audience. It's about yours. Always keep that in mind. Yeah, you could get on that homepage. It's going to open
that
up.
out.
Yeah, tweet that one out. Go for it.
Tweet.
Let me just make sure you get that. So yeah, so that's the key thing. But in terms of like what differs it, I mean, I could probably talk a little bit about that, but like it almost doesn't matter. I mean, the big difference, if you needed a difference between like Indiegogo and let's say Kickstarter, for example, is like with us you have that option of like flexible funding where if you don't hit your goal, you get to keep whatever you raise, which I personally like because you're working hard. If you're putting in that hard work like RV talks about, you want to get the money that you earn because you earned it. Even if it's you wanted 50,000, you made a mistake. But 20,000 is not. I can't turn away 20,000. I'll be like, give me that shit. So I don't understand platforms like Kickstarter, to be honest with that. But we have that option in case people do like that option. So that's like the one big difference, if anything. But really, it's like the platform is about the tools that they offer. So again, Seed & Spark offers the wedding registry feel, and if you know that you can use that, well, then that's part of the platform. If you think that you want this idea of flexibility and you want, kind of one-on-one support or whatever other things that Indiegogo or another platform might offer, then you have to do that research, find out what those tools are, find out what you know you're going to be able to use properly, and then choose that way.
I will say all of the platforms are the how-to and sort of who we are very well explained on all of the platforms. So I would just say do some research as far as sort of going through those things, because there are minute differences, there are different kinds of things that are working, but I think investigating that for yourself, because it's all very much out there on the platform.
Great. Yes, right here.
Hi, I have a question. It's very basic, but you were talking about the Mile High thing, and then
the Mile High. You want to know about the Mile High?
Did I find out? Did I miss that?
Okay.
the hiking movie, and when so you.
That's a different documentary.
That's coming. But I mean, in terms of language, like, would they just go around to like stores and say, "Hey, I'm working on a movie about hiking. Tell me about what your favorite trails are"? I mean, how do you approach people that doesn't sound like, "I'm working on a movie, can you help?" Like, I don't know the language you're supposed to use.
Okay, if I can reiterate that question for those who didn't hear in the back, it was pertaining to the film Mile High about hiking and how do you engage with hikers.
Yeah, or
in
like just
particular,
any kind of, or even with the unemployed, like, what are you going to go up to them and say, "I'm working on a film, will you support me?" Like, I don't know how to do that.
okay, how to go up to anybody from, unemployed to maybe, Donald Trump. How do you approach people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to clarify, it's mile and a half.
Mile High.
Which, would be higher than that. But still, it's a mile. What they did was they went out and identified the hiking crowd. They didn't ask them for money right away. What they did was they engaged them on hiking and on health and things of that nature. They talked about everything from supplements to diets and how many times do you hike a week? They identified the crowd. They were able to go out to social media platforms and search, which you can do with almost any social media platform. They went to bloggers who write, specifically about hiking or specifically about health and educating people on health. Okay, and they said to them, "Look, this is what we're eventually going to do, but in the interim, would you be, willing to talk to us about, what we're looking to do? Maybe interview us, maybe get involved in what we're doing." present us to your audience. And in return, what we'll do is on our Facebook page or on our Twitter page or whatever, we'll promote your blog. It's that give and take, it's that engagement, okay? It's that inclusion, that feeling like that, you're a part of this. It's ownership in a lot of ways. By the time they got to the point where they were asking for money, people thought that they were a part of this project. They felt like they were going on the trail with them. So that when they did go on the trail and they were uploading videos, and they were able to stop somewhere where they had internet access and they were able to upload some videos from the trail, these people were so engaged and so they were waiting for it. 2 or 3 days went by because they were out on the trail and there was no access. By the time they got access and they were able to upload these things, people were like, oh my God, we're waiting for it. They were jonesing for it. They wanted it, That's great, that's an amazing thing. That's the moving the crowd part, So that's why I always go back to the idea of you got to identify them, you have to engage them, and then you have to move them.
Identify, engage, and move.
Tweet it.
Tweet it.
The engaging is, if you identify and you engage, moving really becomes easy. I think you're doing great.
Absolutely.
I mean, it really does, but I think the hardest part is the engagement part. How do you engage them? How do you make them feel like they're part of what you're doing, part of the process, part of the plan, part of the project, Sheila Scorn, doing this thing, the roller derbies and everything like that. Feminist, women empowerment, a girl walks home alone at night, okay? I mean, a black and white film shot in Southern California, in Farsi. Everybody wants to put money into that, don't they? Vampires and skateboards with a female protagonist. Cancer in Hollywood, right? They raised their money because they knew who they were going after. And John can speak more to that. Yeah, John can speak more to that. Well, even if you could, we'd fake it. No, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. They knew their audience. So when the time came to ask them for the money, they were already engaged enough where they said, of course, not only do we need to be the money, but we're going to spread the word of this to other people that we feel are going to be interested in this. Because let's face it, whatever you're an enthusiast of, or whatever you stand for, or whatever you're involved in, odds are you know other people that are involved in that, stand for that, or engaged by it, or whatever. So if you're engaged by something, aren't you going to spread the word to somebody else? If you're a foodie and you go someplace where the food is amazing, aren't you going to tell everybody that the food was fantastic? Of course you are. It's no different. It's no different. But the idea is, how do I recognize that in you? How do I engage you? And how do I engage you enough that you're going to be passionate enough about it and believe in me enough and have faith in me enough to spread the word to that other person that's in your circle? And that's really what it comes down to.
Great.
Can I just add one quick thing to that?
You can add. Yes.
So, I think part of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that foodie analogy was perfect because I do it all the time. I snap a picture. I can't even eat at a place unless I snap a picture beforehand. It takes like 5 minutes because I'm really it takes me a while. But it's easy to do that because I have no ownership to that piece of food because it's going to go in me and then it's going to come out later and it's going to be good. Pardon me. But the key thing is with our own work, there are still these kind of like, oh, how much do I share without somebody maybe stealing my shit? How much do I do? And and you guys may disagree, and that's totally cool. Get over that shit. Copyright the shit, and then get over it and share it. Because if you don't do it, it guarantees somebody else who's more social savvy, who's building relationships instead of looking for a transaction, is going to do it.
Also, back to your question, have you ever asked someone who's an expert about what they do and what they're passionate about? You can't get them to be quiet. So if you're trying to figure out how to talk to people, these hikers will tell you every hike they've been on and the shoe that they used and the rain jacket that they bought and why the Arc'teryx is better than the Patagonia because it lasts for 3 years and you can re-seal the seal. They don't shut up. So you're not asking them for help, you're asking them to tell you about their world. And so it's getting out of that sort of desperation place again and really trying, you come up to them and you say, I'm working on this piece and I would like to know more about X, Y, and Z. I hear that you're an expert. Where should I start? Who else should I be listening to? What do you recommend? And anytime that, just as a rule of thumb, if you ask for money, you will get advice. If you ask for advice, you will get money. So just keeping that in the back of your mind.
Erica, this is why we love each other, because I literally said that same phrase at my last event. I was like, ask for advice, get money. Ask for money, get advice. All right, anyway, we have time for one more question. Does anybody have one? Ooh, I think we did a good job. I think that's what happened. All right, on that note, we're going to get back to mingling and drinking. Please take care of your bartenders. They are working very, very hard on your behalf, and they love you. I talked to them prior, and they said. So have a great night, everybody, and then make sure to